Chaim. So one time of Tzoyim, and I met a Jew, didn't look very religious, and I asked him if he, if he keeps Shabbos, if he observes Shabbos. He said, of course I observe Shabbos. Tell him, what about the other mitzvahs? Of course, I observe all the mitzvahs. I told him, really? He says, yeah, my neighbor's a rabbi, and I observe everything he does. Right? I heard the joke a few times in my So in English, right, when you want to say somebody fulfills, keeps the mitzvahs, does the mitzvahs, you would say he observes the mitzvahs, which is a bit of a strange expression. But in Hebrew, we also have a similar expression. When you want to say somebody does mitzvahs, you say he is shomer Torah mitzvah. He guards or watches the Torah and the mitzvahs. It doesn't mean to keep, it means to guard. Right? What does shomer mean? So the question is, why do we use this word? So, usually shomer is just translated, like Ari said. Usually people just translate shomer instead of guard, keep. But there are a few places in the Torah where that translation doesn't really work very well. In this week's parsha, in Vayikra Perek Chav Beis Pasuk Lamed Aleph, the Torah says, "Ushmartem mitzvosai va'asisam oisam." You should guard my mitzvahs, and you should do them. So what does it mean to guard the mitzvahs?
Keep them and do them.
Keep
them and do them.
It's the same thing.
And keep them in your pocket? Like, what do you mean?
Right? What does that mean? Guard and do? So Rashi explains it on a simple level. He says guard the mitzvahs means to actually study the laws of the mitzvahs. He says this refers to the Mishnah. Right? In order to do the mitzvahs, you have to study. But there are other explanations that are given. And let's try to understand why the Torah uses this word, to guard the mitzvahs, to watch the mitzvahs. So Rabbi Yehuda Leib Lewis is the rabbi in Amsterdam. And the community there had a chevra kadisha, like most Jewish communities around the world. They had a chevra kadisha. These were people who dedicated time and effort towards doing what's known as chesed shel emes, the ultimate true kindness, helping bury people after they pass away, cleaning the body, helping bury them, watching, caring for them. And they had a little cemetery. And over the years, the cemetery slowly became full. And it reached a point that there was no more room in the cemetery. So they had to buy a new plot, a new area to make a new cemetery. And they raised money from the entire community. And they had a special dedication. They dedicated a new area, and they decided where they're going to start burying people. And now it was time to wait for the next, who's going to be next to be buried there.
Who wants to be first?
Everybody wants to be first, but Anyways, finally, a short while later, a few weeks later, someone in the community passed away, and this was going to be the first burial in the new cemetery. Right, the entire community comes out, and of course, the Chevra Kadisha came there extra early to prepare the grave. And as they come out to the cemetery, they can't believe their eyes.
Right?
The grave is already dug. Somebody already dug the grave? Okay. Whatever. There wasn't a lot of time to figure out what happened, but after the entire funeral process, they looked into it and they found out that the grave was dug by Moshe Cohen. Moshe Cohen was a member of the community, and he was always very bothered by the fact that he was not able to participate in this very special mitzvah, right? The chesed shel emes, right? The true kindness, helping to bury somebody who passed away. It's the only kindness which a person could never hope to be repaid, because there's no way to do it selfishly. But he was bothered. He couldn't do it. He's a Kohen. A Kohen is not allowed to be involved in burying people. A Kohen is not allowed to become impure. He's not allowed to even walk into a cemetery without walls around him, without a machitza around him. And when he heard that they were going to buy a new cemetery, he finally has an opportunity. He's been waiting for all of his life. He has a chance to do the mitzvah, Alvayas Ames, the one mitzvah that he has never been able to do. So he made sure he got to the cemetery early in the morning, and it took, I don't know how long it takes, but it certainly takes a good few hours for one person to do it. He was there for hours and hours early in the morning.
6 feet
And
down.
he knew that this was a once in a lifetime opportunity for him, but he did it.
Somebody died.
And the time that we find ourselves in now, the days of Parshas Emor, actually stand for this idea that the Jewish people, it's not just that Hashem came to the Jewish people and said, I have this big book of the Torah with 613 commandments. You want to accept it? And they were too embarrassed to say no. Hashem just freed them from Egypt. So they said, okay, fine, we'll do it. But that's not what happened. What happened was the Jews said, another 7 weeks, Hashem is going to give us the Torah. It's amazing. Let's start counting down the days. Our attitude towards a mitzvah is not, Nebuch, I have 613 different burdens that Hashem put on my back. I have to carry them. I have no choice. No, our attitude towards them is I'm counting up the time until I have the opportunity to do a mitzvah. If there's a mitzvah that I don't have the opportunity to do, I'm waiting anxiously for the moment that I should be able to do this mitzvah. In the city of Zerdali, Hungary, about 200 years ago, there lived a butcher named Baruch the butcher. He was a simple Jew, and he loved doing mitzvahs. He loved doing mitzvahs. You know how important it is to do mitzvahs. He wasn't able to, didn't really have the abilities to learn Torah as well as he would like, but he tried to do chesed, he tried to help people. And every day, he would come into the shul in the morning. He was one of the first people in the shul, and he would watch Kalman, the gabbai of the shul, would come early in the morning, and this was before they had electric lights. This was 200 years ago, and Kalman would take a bunch of candles and would set them up all around the shul, and he would light the candles. And Kalman loved his job. He wasn't, somebody who did it for the money. He was somebody who did it because he loved the mitzvah of honoring, cleaning, taking care of the shul. And when he would light the candles, he would do it with such fire, not just the fire of the candles, but the fire in his neshama. And Baruch the butcher would watch him every morning, and he started to become jealous, right? This Kalman has such an amazing opportunity. Every morning he comes to shul, and he has the honor of lighting the candles. One day he goes over to Kalman, and he says, listen, Kalman, can you let me light the candles in shul sometimes? And Kalman's like, absolutely not. This is my mitzvah, right? I have the schus, the honor of doing it. And he says, please, listen, I'm willing to pay you. I know they don't pay you very well, as the job of a gabbai doesn't pay very well. Baruch Hashem, I have a good parnasa. I'll give you 1 gold coin every day for this mitzvah. Right? Kalman says, do you think I care about the money? This is a mitzvah. And he says, no, you got to please. I really want to do this mitzvah. It's not fair. You should get the mitzvah on your own. And Kalman says, I'll think about it. Later that day, Kalman goes to Rabbi Yehuda Assad, who is rabbi of Zerdali, and he says, listen, Rabbi, I don't know what to do. Right? This butcher came over to me, Baruch came over to me, and he wants to buy the mitzvah from me. I don't want to sell it. But he says it's not right that I should get the mitzvah every day, right? Do I have any obligation to let him share in the mitzvah? So the rabbi says to him, listen, it's your job as a gabbai to do it, so you have no obligation to let him do the mitzvah, right? You have no obligation to let him do the mitzvah. However, if you're truly doing the mitzvah for the sake of Hashem, right, not for the sake of getting some rewards, right? You're truly doing it to honor Hashem, right? So you should know that being kind towards another Jew, if another Jew really wants the mitzvah, you have a chance to do 2 mitzvahs, right? Baruch, first of all, you can give Baruch the opportunity of lighting the candles in shul, and you could do a mitzvah of being kind, of giving a gift, giving a mitzvah to your friend. So he says, you're right, that's a good idea. Maybe I'll let him start doing it. So what about the payment? He wants to pay me money. I don't want to take any money for it. So the rabbi says, listen, he wants to give money. This is his way of honoring Hashem. So what I advise you is to take the money from him. Don't use the money. I want you to take the money, put it in a box, put it in a safe, lock it up, and just keep the money. And we'll figure out in the future what to do with it. Okay?
Working on a project.
Okay, right?
I think it's gonna go back to him in the end.
So the next morning, Baruch comes. He gives him a gold coin. He's so excited. He brings the candles. He lights them, and this goes on the next day and the next day, and this goes on for a few years. For the next few years, every day he gives Kalman a gold coin. Kalman puts it aside in a little box,
Wow.
and 10 years went by, and there is a.
Very interesting share. Come.
And the economy takes a turn, and Baruch's butcher shop is not doing very well. Not doing very well, and he starts to lose business. And it happened at a very terrible time for him, because it was just at the time when he was marrying off his daughter, and it was shortly before the wedding when his business basically went downhill, and he lost all of his money. And now he has no money to marry off his daughter. He certainly doesn't have money to continue paying a gold coin every day for the candles. But he has no money to marry off his daughter. So he goes to the rabbi, he goes to Rabbi Yehuda Assad, and he says, I have a big problem. I made an obligation. I committed a certain amount of money for the dowry. My son-in-law should be able to sit and learn Torah. And now I don't have any money to pay. So the rabbi asks him, how much money did you commit to this dowry? And he says, 2,500 gold coins.
Yeah.
Right? This is maybe 2,000 for the dowry, another 500 for the wedding. So Rabbi Yehuda Assad says, okay, wait here. Go to the next room, and I'll call you in a short while. And in the meantime, he goes out, he calls Kalman, and he says, I want you to bring the box, I want you to open the box, I want you to count out the coins. And sure enough, they find exactly 2,500 gold coins over there.
So what, like 6 years or now you did it?
This is about almost 10 years. If you don't count Shabbos, 10 years would be about 3,000, but more, 3,500. I guess if you don't count Shabbos and Yom Tov. And I'm not sure if he did it every day, but maybe he was out of town, but it was close to 10 years. So Rabbi Yehuda Assad would actually tell over this story, and he would say that you have two people who really both wanted to do a mitzvah, right? They both wanted to do a mitzvah. They both really had a strong desire to do the mitzvah, and Hashem gave them. First of all, Hashem gave them both an opportunity to do the mitzvah. Both of them had the merit, joint merit of lighting the candles in the shul, and of course Hashem helped Baruch and gave him a Yeshua in honor of this mitzvah. But even more than they lit up the shul, Rabbi Yehuda Assad would say they lit up their own neshamas with this mitzvah. And this is really the attitude that we should have towards every mitzvah. Avraham Avinu told in Parshas Lech Lecha, it's very hot outside and there are no guests. What does Avraham say? Does he say, oh, okay, I have a few days off. I'm not feeling so good. I just did my bris milah. I could sit in my tent. I could relax a little bit. No. Avraham's attitude was, how can I go a day without a mitzvah? I'm going to run outside in the heat and sit at the door of my tent to try to find an opportunity to do a mitzvah. And this is really the attitude that we should all have towards every mitzvah. A Jew from Gibraltar once came to visit.
I'm so excited for the mitzvah.
A Jew from Gibraltar once came to Reb Chaim Kanievsky, asked for a bracha. And he introduced himself to Reb Chaim. And when Reb Chaim heard that he came from Gibraltar, he said, I always wanted to visit Gibraltar. The Jew was a little bit surprised to hear this. Which tourist attractions does Reb Chaim Kanievsky want to visit? It's a nice place, Gibraltar, right? It's a lot of people go to visit. It's a big tourist attraction. But he's a little surprised to hear that Reb Chaim wants to go there. So he says, why? What do you want to see in Gibraltar? So he says, well, there's a Mishnah. There's a Mishnah in Brachos. Brachos Perek Tes Mishnah Beis, right? That tells us that there's a special bracha that you say.
What's most gracious, or should I go with my life?
And then there's another bracha, Rabbi Yehuda Omer. Rabbi Yehuda says there's a special bracha that you say when you see the Yam HaGadol, when you see the Great Sea. Or Yam HaGadol. Let me see the exact lashon. Where is it? Yeah, Shabara Yam HaGadol. right? Who created the Great Sea. So the Shulchan Aruch, Beis Yosef, writes that what is Hayam HaGadol, the Great Sea? So the Torah, when it's describing the borders of Eretz Yisrael, it describes the western border of Eretz Yisrael as the Great Sea, which is the Mediterranean Sea. So it refers to the Mediterranean Sea, even though it's not perhaps the greatest sea in the world, but it's the sea which is bordering Eretz Yisrael. So that's the sea which has a special bracha. However, most other opinions, Magen Avraham brings out a bunch of different halachic authorities who argue on the Beis Yosef, and they say that it refers to the Atlantic Ocean. So there's a problem, says Reb Chaim, right? You have an amazing bracha that you want to make, but we're not sure which ocean to make it by. But Gibraltar is an amazing place. It's in a place where the Mediterranean Sea meets the Atlantic Ocean. So you could stand right at the rock of Gibraltar and you could make the bracha according to all opinions. Right? That's why I wanted to visit Gibraltar. Right? So it wasn't the nice hotels over there. It wasn't whatever other tourist attractions. What was Reb Chaim when he heard Gibraltar? Right? I always wanted to visit there. What did he want to visit there? He wanted to have the chance to make a bracha. Right? That's our attitude, right? The same way some people might look for a look forward to a nice vacation. Reb Chaim is looking forward to the opportunity to say a bracha.
One person eats the apple to say the bracha, and one person says the bracha to eat the apple. So it's the other way around.
Right? So Ari's saying every time you do any mitzvah, that should be your main purpose. But here we're talking about not just something you do every day, something that's more of a mitzvah you look forward to. So the Rab Moshe Sofer, the great Chassam Sofer, was once sitting with his students. He was learning with his students when he was interrupted by the president of the community came in to see him. And
What is this name?
this is the Chassam Sofer. And the Chassam Sofer looks up, what do you want? And he says, it's fine. He kind of, maybe later we'll talk about it. Okay, so Chassam Sofer realizes he wants to talk in private. He finishes up the lesson, and he calls him into another room. He says, what's the problem? And he says, big tzaras in my business. I lost all my money. I did some very bad business deals, and I lost everything. And not only that, I have a lot of debts. I owe a lot of people money. And this has been going on for a couple of months already, but, Baruch Hashem, until now, nobody knew that I lost my money. And I've been able to continue as usual. I borrowed money, I figured things out. But tomorrow, there's a big fair in Leipzig. And every year I travel to the fair and I buy things. And and now I don't have any money. I don't even have any money for the trip to travel to Leipzig. And if I don't go, everyone's going to realize that I lost all my money. And I'm ruined, right? My business, my reputation, everything is ruined. All of my creditors are going to come demand their money, and I don't know what to do, right? I came to the Rav for advice. Maybe you can give me a bracha. So the Chassam Sofer says, "How much money do you need to go to the fair?" And he says, "Well, if I wanted to go like I usually do, would be a tremendous amount of money. But if you want to know the minimum amount that I would need," he gave him a certain sum.
500 rubles.
Okay, 100 rubles, let's
500.
say. 500 rubles. 500 rubles.
A billion.
So the Chassam Sofer says, okay, I'll lend you 500 rubles. I have 500 rubles in savings. I've been saving it up, whatever, to marry off my children, whatever it was, whatever he was saving for. And I could lend you the money. And he says, no, I wouldn't. I didn't come to ask you for a loan. I came to ask you for a bracha. So he says, but
Where's the
I have
chips?
opportunity. If I can help you out, why shouldn't I help you out? So he says, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to repay you, right? I don't know if I'm going to be able to repay you. And he says, listen, Barash, I know that you've used your money in the past to give a lot of tzedakah, to help people, and therefore I'm sure that Hashem is going to bless you and you're going to have unbelievable success in the fair tomorrow, and I want to lend you the money. And he took out 500 rubles and he gave it to the president, and the president thanked him. He was so thankful, and the next day he went off to the fair. Right? He comes to the fair. He doesn't have as much money as he usually has, but he has a nice sum. And as soon as he arrives in the fair, a friend of his comes and he offers to sell him a shipment of coffee for a good price. Okay, wonderful. So he buys the coffee, and the next day the news reaches the fear that the crop in Brazil had been damaged by bad weather, and the price of coffee suddenly shot up, 3-4 times as much, and he was able to make a very good profit. And the next day he bought some more stuff, and again you saw unbelievable success. For the next few days he had unbelievable success. He was able to make enough money to cover all of his debts and to return to his normal state. And he was so happy, and he knew, of course, it was thanks to the bracha of Chassam Sofer. And as he's leaving the fair, he decides he has to show his appreciation to Chassam Sofer for his amazing bracha. So he decided to buy a gift, and he bought a valuable gem as a gift for the Chassam Sofer.
I remember this.
He comes back to the Chassam Sofer, and the Chassam Sofer is again in the middle of teaching his students. And this time he doesn't wait for the class to end. He's not embarrassed anymore. He comes in and he says, "Rabbi, your brachos are amazing. I'm telling you, I had unbelievable success. Here's the 500 rubles you lent me, and I brought you a gift." Pulls out a box with a gem, and the Chassam Sofer's face lit up, shone, radiated with light. A big smile appeared across his face. And he took the box with a big smile. And all of the students are shocked. They've never seen his face light up so much. Right? Even if it's a good Tosfos, he was excited about, but they never saw him get this excited. And he opens up the box. He takes out the gem. He starts looking at it from all angles. Wow, amazing, he says. And then he takes the gem. He puts it back in the box with a big smile on his face. He gives it back to the president. And he's like, "No, Rabbi, this is a gift. It's a gift for you." And he says, I know it's a gift for me, but I'm not allowed to take your gift because there is a mitzvah in the Torah that you're not allowed to take interest. You're not allowed to take ribis on a loan. But, I can't accept it for me. Okay? He says, thanks to Chassam Sofer for the loan. He takes the gem and he leaves. Some Sofer students are looking at him and they're like, well, why did he get so excited about the gem? You weren't able to keep it anyways, right? Well, what were you so excited about? So he says, let me tell you a story. Many years ago, I was traveling with my teacher, Rabbi Nosson Adler. But Chassam Sofer, when he was young, he was almost taught by, he grew up in the house of Rabbi Nosson Adler, his teacher. And he said one time my teacher was traveling and he took me with him. And we were traveling on the road, and it was a very cold winter day, and there was a big snow. And one of the horses were having a lot of trouble pulling the wagon, and one of the horses suddenly collapsed, injured one of his legs. And the wagon driver, we couldn't continue obviously with just one horse, so the wagon driver got off, and he untied the horse from the wagon, and he said he's going to go to the nearby village to bring a new horse. Oh. So he goes to the nearby village. It's taking him some time. In the meantime, me and my teacher were sitting in the wagon. We were sitting and learning together. And suddenly, my teacher stops learning. He opens the door of the wagon. He jumps out of the wagon. He jumps into the snow. And he starts dancing in the snow. And I'm looking at him, and I'm a little surprised. What are you dancing for? Well, it was a nice, good vart that we were just learning. It was very interesting. I was also very happy that we were learning with my teacher. But so excited, you're dancing in the snow. So I get out of the wagon. I'm like, everything okay? Right? What's going on? And my teacher points in the distance, and he says, look. And I look in the distance, and I see the wagon driver. He's coming back. And I'm like, okay, yeah, wagon driver's coming back. So what are we dancing for? And he grabs my hand and he starts dancing with me. He says, look what he has with him. And I look in the distance and I see he's bringing an ox with him. He's bringing an ox. And my teacher's dancing with me, and we start dancing towards the wagon driver. And he says to the wagon driver, it's amazing that you brought this ox to help us on our journey, but we're not allowed to travel with an ox and a horse together. It's a mitzvah in the Torah. We'll pay you extra. You can go back to the village and bring back another horse. Okay? The wagon driver turns around. He goes back to the village, and we get back into the wagon. And I turn to my teacher, and I'm like, what was the dancing all about? And my teacher says, don't you realize There's a mitzvah in the Torah, one of the 613 mitzvahs, that you shouldn't work with an ox and a donkey together, right? Or an ox and a horse would also be under the same thing. And, I sit and learn all day. I don't deal with oxen. I don't deal with donkeys. I don't deal with horses. And I always thought that, Nebuch, this is one of the mitzvahs that I'm never going to have a chance to do. And here, amazing. I'm in the middle of traveling, and suddenly, out of nowhere, Hashem gives me this opportunity to do this mitzvah. This amazing mitzvah that I never thought I would be able to do. Shouldn't I jump out of the wagon and sing and dance and thank Hashem for it? The Chassam Sofer finishes the story, and he turns to his students and he says, I'm not a businessman. I don't borrow or lend money. I always thought I would never have the opportunity to fulfilling the mitzvah not to lend with interest. And here, I'm middle of learning, and Hashem sends me this amazing opportunity. He gives me the opportunity not to accept interest. Of course my face lit up. Of course I had a big smile. I was so excited I had this amazing opportunity. And this is how the Chassam Sofer explains this verse in our parsha. Right? You should guard the mitzvahs, and you should do them. What does it mean to guard the mitzvahs? So he says you find this expression of guarding something by Yosef's dream. When Yosef has a dream, he tells his brother and his father. It says, so Yosef's brothers were very jealous of Yosef. The Aviv shamar es hadav. His father guarded the matter. What does it mean he guarded the matter?
Remember.
Rashi says he waited with anticipation for the next 22 years. And he waited. He said, when will this dream come true? He was sitting and waiting. When will Yosef's dreams come true?
We just learned that.
This, says the Chassam. Oh, you learned the Rashi? Or you just learned the Pasuk?
We learned the Pasuk in Chumash.
So if you learn, the Rashi explains that when it says Yaakov guarded the matter, it means he was waiting with anticipation for the dream to be fulfilled. So the Chassam Sofer says, when the Torah says you should guard the mitzvahs, what does that mean? It means that a Jew looks forward with anticipation. When will I have the opportunity to do another mitzvah? When will I be able to do this rare mitzvah that, a kohen could never do? Dig a grave. Do a chesed shel emes. If you have the opportunity, you look forward with tremendous anticipation, right? You see a Jew as that mitzvah of lighting up the shul every morning. When will I get that opportunity? How could I have a part of this mitzvah, right? There's this bracha that you can only make in one spot in the world according to all opinions. Chaim says, when will I have the opportunity to make this bracha properly, right? And this is the way we're supposed to look at every single mitzvah. This is what the Torah is telling us. Of course we have to do the mitzvahs, but we also have to guard the mitzvahs. We have to be a guard, is always on the lookout, right? He's always looking around, watching in the distance, right? That's what we have to do. We're looking for something. We're looking for another mitzvah. We're on guard. We're looking around for another opportunity to do a mitzvah. And this is also the message of, again, as we mentioned before, of Parshas Emor, and also of what's coming up in a couple of weeks, right? Another week and a half. Next week, actually, we have the Jewish people in the desert who wanted to do a mitzvah. They wanted to bring the Korban Pesach, and they weren't able to. What do they say? Did they say, okay, we don't have to do it, we're impure? No, they go to Moshe Rabbeinu, and they say, we want this opportunity. Lama Nigara, why should we miss out on this mitzvah? And Hashem says, if you really want to do this mitzvah, you don't want to miss out, you're really looking forward to this mitzvah, I'll give you another opportunity. I'll give you a mitzvah. Next week we celebrate Pesach Sheni, right? Hashem says, if you really want the mitzvah, I'll help you do it. And to include the final story, Rab Shraga Shmuel Schnitzler was a Hasidic Rav who was taken by the Nazis and was sent to the Bergen-Belsen concentration camp in 1944. And, of course, we can't imagine what it's like to be there, but he realized that his job is to offer encouragement, support for the other Jews who are with him. And when they arrived there, it was about a month or so before Hanukkah. And he tells his fellow Jews in the camp, he says, we're a month away from a special Yom Tov, Hanukkah, the Yom Tov of lights. We're in such a dark place, but pretty soon we're going to have an opportunity to light it up. And his other Jews, they're telling him, you think you're going to have an opportunity to celebrate Hanukkah over here? Really? And he says, no, of course we're going to celebrate Hanukkah. Yeah, really? You're going to get candles over here in a concentration camp? Of course. Right? He spends the next few weeks trying to figure out how he can get candles, and all of his efforts aren't very successful. All of his efforts come up short. And unfortunately, he had the job of cleaning out the showers, loading all of the bodies into a cart and bringing them to the crematorium at the edge of the camp. And every morning, he would go back and forth with this cart, with this wagon. And on the 21st of Kislev, or 22nd of Kislev, he was pushing his wagon. It was 3 days before Hanukkah. 2 days before Hanukkah, he's pushing the wagon. It's the 20th of Kislev. 4 days before Hanukkah, he was pushing the wagon, and suddenly he hit a bump in the road. Which is a little bit strange because this bump hadn't been there. He had been going down the same road for the last few weeks, and he hadn't had this bump wasn't there earlier. He wanted to investigate, but he saw a Nazi soldier standing behind him, so he just continued on his way. But later on during the day, he came back to investigate, and he sees it looks like something is going on over there. So he starts digging, and to his surprise, he finds a little bottle of oil, a few little cups, and some cotton, some wicks. And he realizes, somebody must have managed to get Hanukkah candles. It's amazing, right? He's not going to take it. He's going to leave it there, but he wants to find out who it is. Maybe he could join in with the Hanukkah lighting. The next day, he starts to ask around, and he's asking around, and nobody knows what he's talking about. People are telling him, you're imagining things. There's no candles anywhere. Nobody hit candles, right? And he waits. He doesn't want to take it. He knows it belongs to somebody. But he waits until the night of Hanukkah, till the first night of Hanukkah. And he goes back as it's getting dark, and he checks, and the candles are still there. So he takes it out of the ground. He goes back to his room. He tells everybody, we're going to light Hanukkah candles. And, of course, everybody gets together. Somehow they manage to avoid being seen. And they managed to light Hanukkah candles, not just that night, but for the next 8 nights. It was, of course, you can imagine what an emotional event this was. People were crying, hugging each other. They sang together in silence. Obviously, they didn't want anybody to hear them. And it was a very emotional event. And, Baruch Hashem, he managed to survive another year till mid-1945 when the camp was liberated. And he went back for a period of time. He went back to his. Well, let's see what city it was. So originally he went back to a city in Hungary. It's called Csaber, and he became a rabbi over there for a period of time. A lot of people came to him for brachos. He was known as a holy Jew. But then a few years later, he moved to Israel. And in 1951, he had the opportunity to travel to Brooklyn, and he went to meet the Satmar Rebbe. And he was very excited about the opportunity to meet the Satmar Rebbe, because the Satmar Rebbe was also in Bergen-Belsen with him. He was also in the camp. And, they would have a chance to talk about their shared experience there. And he went in to see the Rebbe, and the Rebbe told me they started sharing their story, and the Rebbe shared his story, how he was miraculously freed from the camps. And he says, it was an amazing miracle that Hashem did for me, but there's one thing that bothered me very much, the Rebbe says. And he says, what? And he says, Baruch Hashem, I was freed 3 days before Hanukkah. The Satmar Rebbe was freed on the 21st of Kislev. And before I was a surprise. It came as a shock to me. It was a miracle that I managed to get out, but I wasn't aware until the last day. So, of course, what did I do before Hanukkah? I managed to bribe some guards, and I got some candles, and I hid it in the ground, and I left in such a rush, I didn't have the opportunity to tell anybody where I hid the wicks, where I hid the candles. Right? Shaga tells him, you don't have to worry about anything. You really wanted to do a mitzvah, and I really wanted to do a mitzvah, so Hashem made sure that the mitzvah got done. We found your candles hundreds of Jews were able to participate in the lighting of the candles. And right if you really wanted to do the mitzvah, and I was looking forward for weeks for this opportunity, Hashem allowed us to fulfill the mitzvah, and this is something that we all have to realize. The Torah tells us not only do we have a mitzvah of sisamaisim, of doing the mitzvahs, we have an obligation to guard the mitzvahs, to look forward to doing the mitzvahs, and if we look forward to this, if we guard the mitzvahs, the pasuk promises us, if you will guard the mitzvahs, then Hashem will allow you to do them. Hashem will give you the opportunity, even if it seems impossible. If we really look forward to it and we really want to, and we do everything in our power to do the mitzvahs, Hashem will help us fulfill them properly. L'chaim, l'chaim.
Is this done? Are we done?